anonymously online. The policing of virtual rape would be insane.
Okay, let's check here. Today we were listening to a podcast, ASMR style. So we're going to find a good video that we can find.
Hi everyone, Sandman here. Today's video is brought to you by a donation from an anonymous donor. And here's what Mr. Anonymous has to say. Hi Sandman, I was hoping that you could do another video for your prostitution series. In particular, I'd like you to talk about prostitution in Mexico. Hi everyone, Sandman here.
Wrong one.
Today's video is brought to you by a donation from Anonymous. And here's what he has to say. How compatible is narco-capitalism and libertarianism with MGTOW philosophy? Please keep me anonymous and keep up the great work. Well, Mr. Anonymous, thanks for your donation. And politically speaking, I believe that most men going their own way are political atheists. Many of us understand that women make up the majority of the voters, so they'll always vote in parties that favor their interests. A libertarian party would never actually be successful in Western countries because it would limit the size of government and in the process fire a disproportionately high number of female workers, so hence it would never get elected. Anarcho-capitalism and libertarianism are all about freedom, self-determination, and keeping your own property. And that doesn't work in a system where women are the majority of the voters and keep voting themselves more goodies. Libertarianism and true free capitalism are more compatible with the male psyche and personality than state capitalism, i.e. communism or the current crony capitalism that we live under today. Under traditional capitalism, the owners own the means of production and control the factories and the capital, and the workers toil away in those factories in corporate veal fattening pens. But in the past, men working at such places took home the money and had dominion over their own homes and families. Today, however, men take the money home, but they've lost control of their money, their wives, their children, and even their government. A small government would be great for men, and it's compatible with men's natural drive to be independent of the government, corporations, as well as women. Anarchists also oppose the expropriation of private property through force. And just look at the family court system that's ruined many fathers in the United States, as well as many other Western countries. It's nothing more than a fancy way to strip people of their private property rights because they choose to fulfill their biological imperatives and reproduce. In the past, societies were mostly patriarchal, and we had a more limited government, and women didn't have as many rights. And if a wife decided to leave her husband, then she couldn't take the home, the children, and the money with her, and leave the husband destitute. The state understood that if you pissed off the men by taking their stuff, society would basically ground to a halt, and men would revolt. But the state began to grow and started to employ more and more women in the government payrolls, and then took mostly property from men in order to create a welfare state by giving that property to single mothers and those who were unable to work. The social safety net is a fancy word for theft, and I'm sure that many MGTOWs also see it this way. As I said in earlier videos, I'm so overtaxed the next year I'm going to be working to pay for someone's full pension, and the rest of my tax dollars will go to supporting a single mother and her children. But if I dare to have children of my own, then the state would use my wife and my children against me to force me to support them as well. And at that point, I would be left eating a box of oatmeal under the bridge while supporting a senior citizen pensioner, a single mother and her kids, as well as an ex-wife and another set of kids with her. And the current feminist-based state capitalist system wouldn't even care how I felt. And if I didn't comply like a good worker drone, then I'd be sent off to debtor's prison. This is the world that we live in today. A tiny government with libertarian ideals and policies would be amazing for most men, and especially MGTOW men. It would mean that we could work less, keep more of our money, and enjoy our lives while we were going our own way. But what about all the starving single mothers and their children out there that would be forced to get menial jobs to replace their government checks and benefits for doing nothing? So as you can see, we're not going back to a smaller government. We're going to get less free markets and move further away from libertarianism in the state. The only way to fight back, according to some men going their own way, is to ghost and do as little as possible and avoid being a productive male member of society or a level 4 MGTOW. And with regards to anarcho-capitalism, it favors the elimination of the state in favor of individual sovereignty, property rights, as well as open markets. Men going their own way are in favor of anything that shrinks the state. And I also think we can all agree that we're in favor of individual sovereignty, private property, as well as open markets. But the problem is that we'll always need some laws, and we need some level of government because people aren't perfect. I wish that everyone could self-govern and be self-organized. And that was possible in pre-industrial societies when men owned the means of production and made up the brute force required in warfare. But the world is too complex today to go back to those days. We can probably shrink 70 to 80% of the government workers that we have today, but we would still need a big government from a historical perspective. And this isn't a MGTOW view, this is just my opinion. I like clean and maintained streets, indoor plumbing, as well as other government services. I just don't like the waste that goes into them. Out of every 5 tax dollars I send to the state, I'm sure that 4 of them are wasted on useless studies and to pay someone a 6-figure salary at a government job somewhere. If the majority of men going their own way aren't going to have children, then why do we need to continue paying into that system so that many deadbeat blue pill men can go out and get women pregnant and then take jobs under the table to avoid paying child support in the first place? Yet the most productive men get taxed the most. None of this sounds like liberty to me. The founding fathers said that the tree of liberty needs to be watered with the blood of patriots and tyrants each and every single generation. But over the last 3 generations, it's being watered using period blood. And now that tree is sick and dying, and men are expected to keep it alive, so an entire class of women can enjoy the party. I think it's safe to say that men going their own way are against feminism.
That's
Today's state in America has gone from being a democratic republic to a feminist gynocracy where men are increasingly stripped of private property and capital, and it's handed over to women. MGTOWs believe that we need to inform as many men as possible to ensure that the state doesn't forcefully take our property rights away, as well as use the threat of the family courts, which, as many of you in the United States know, is basically unconstitutional. As an independent businessman and freelancer, I'm also an anarcho-capitalist. I believe in the voluntary trade of private property instead of the state handing over men's private property over to women by force. I also believe in working for myself, making my own hours, and this not only makes me more productive than if I'd actually been doing some demoralizing 9-to-5 job, but it also gives me more freedoms. Libertarianism makes more men productive because they get to keep their own money. And they work a lot less and become more idle when someone forces them to work while threatening to take away their families and their livelihoods. Communism took men's money away and put us to work. But the current gynocentric capitalist system threatens to take away our families if we don't continue to work even harder. The state and the women voting in it are basically using our own love for our own families against us to get us to be productive. And in the end, 50% of us lose our families and our capital anyways. So as I was saying, libertarianism and anarcho-capitalism are completely compatible with MGTOW. But at the same time, I'm sorry to say this, that the government won't actually be shrinking, and they won't allow us to be free anytime soon. Because if we were, then who would pay for all the unproductive members in our society? The government certainly wouldn't. You see, the way I see it, the idea of the 9-to-5 workday is actually enforced by the government. Because I think that many businesses would be working 24/7 if they could, but because so many government offices only work 9-to-5 or 9-to-4, this basically forces private industry to stay open at those particular times. I've been receiving a paycheck from Google AdSense for the last 12 years. And the way they work things is they give their employees and affiliates a work-life integration instead of a work-life balance. A work-life balance kills the spirit because human beings aren't meant to be machines. We can't expect to be living our lives in 8-hour increments, 8 hours straight working, 8 hours living our lives, and then 8 hours sleeping. This dehumanizes us. As I was saying, for men going their own way, the state wants to dehumanize us, take away our property, and potentially use us as slaves to women if we choose to associate with them. And the state gives women power that they wouldn't have without the full responsibility. They would never have such power under libertarianism or narco-capitalism because they would be held accountable for their mistakes. Feminism and female nature subvert men, thus subverting the free markets. Think of it this way. You want to buy a sports car and your wife says, "No, I want an SUV or minivan instead so you can shuttle around the kids during their soccer games." But if you say no, then the threat of divorce is ever present. We are living in a system of feminist state capitalism where you're allowed to act freely as a man so long as you do what your wife says, with the constant threat of the state backing her up with the threat of violence, i.e. she might divorce you if you don't get rid of the Camaro and do as you're told. Your personal mode or means of production are there to service the gynocracy through taxes for single mothers, alimony, as well as child support. The birth rates in Western countries are collapsing, and they don't care about men or making the government more suited for male producers. Instead, they're just bringing in men from Syria and Africa, thinking that those men will be just as productive and innovative as the men the state and Western countries are already destroying. Eventually, the gunocracy will crash and burn, and with new technologies such as 3D printing, robotics, Bitcoin, and artificial wombs, this will eventually create more liberty for males in our
Artificial
economies.
wombs. What the?
It's ironic that liberty is found
Far
not by
out,
fighting
man.
the
That'd
government like it was in the
be
past,
interesting.
but instead by creating technologies and ways of thinking that the government cronies are basically unable to understand. Last year, the governor of the Bank of Canada had no idea that bitcoins were buying everything from pizza to cocaine, and some people were choosing to receive their entire salaries in bitcoins as well. Digital currencies are now being adopted by many in the libertarian as well as MGTOW communities, including Vench and MGTOW. And bitcoins are easier to move across borders than diamonds are. And I'm also hoping that in the future, technology will change so rapidly that it'll give us new liberties without the government being able to even understand what we're doing or even trying to police us. You can only drive down the free markets in a man's desire for liberty so far before he revolts and finds another way to get what he wants. Again, to answer your question, Mr. Anonymous, do I think that men going their own way would prefer anarcho-capitalism or libertarianism instead of feminist state capitalism? And the answer is an astounding yes. Anarcho-capitalism and libertarianism are all about allowing men to go their own way with regards to property. So once again, MGTOW and these philosophies are completely compatible. But I still believe we need laws to a certain extent. And I believe in a return to a republic with the rule of law in the United States. And hopefully that idea can spread to other countries as well. And I think that most men wish for the same thing too. If anyone thinks any differently, then please share your comments down below. And again, thank you for your donation, Mr. Anonymous. As for everyone else out there, please follow me on Twitter or like me on Facebook to get tomorrow's video today. Thanks for taking your daily dose of red pills. And remember, a red pill a day keeps the divorce lawyers away. So enjoy the rest of your day, and cheers. Hi everyone, Sandman here. Today's video was brought to you by a donation from John, and here's what he has to say. Sandman, I love your perspective on things. I want you to do a reaction and perspective on modern education and equality videos on YouTube. I will share the links with you, so please let me know. Well, John, thanks for your donation as well as the links, and I'm sharing both of these in the description below. And I also suggest that everyone watch them first.
So that video was talking about how, basically how as a man, this modern, what is it, like this modern day thing of capitalism is not beneficial towards men. What we need is libertarianism and anarcho-capitalism. And of course with government, with small rules and certain rules like no murder and certain things like that. That's just my perspective on that. Now, I did not make that podcast. That is a podcast by Sandman. He is a MGTOW, I don't think he's a MGTOW monk. He's had a couple of girlfriends, but he's like 38 years old. Cool dude. I know him very well. He's currently up in Toronto, Canada, making some videos and Bitcoin stuff. But I definitely watch his channel and check him out. But this is Diverse ASMR. I'm not going to leave just yet, but we're going to listen to some more of the stuff.
Hi.
This video is going to talk about how marriage 90% of the time is a horrible mistake. Oh crap! This guy's about to drag me out of the car.
Everyone, Sandman here. Today's video is brought to you by a donation from Sean, and here's what he has to say. Hello, Sandman. I've been overdosing on the red pill for 2 days now, and I find it scary how thus far I haven't been able to disagree with anything that you've talked about in your videos that I have seen. I'm Christian and have been that way all my life. I have been therefore warned not to engage in sex outside of marriage, which has served me well. It's funny how you regard Tesla as the hero of MGTOW, as he's also my favorite inventor. Some admire Einstein, I admire Tesla. Anyway, I was first introduced to the concept of MGTOW via a now-defunct website called don'tmarry.com, and I found it difficult to disagree with the observations that the author was writing about, and it's left a lasting impression on me ever since. That was almost 10 years ago. Getting down to the point of why I'm writing to you, I want to share a few passages of scripture from the King James Bible. Don't worry, I'm not actually trying to convert you or even preach to you. This is a passage from Genesis 3:6 that goes like this. And when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was pleasant to the eyes, and a tree to be desired to make one wise, she took the fruit thereof, and did eat, and gave also unto her husband with her, and he did eat. A woman desired something from the tree that she apparently could not get anywhere else. Sandman, this all sounds like a foundation feminism course, where the woman is learning to get something that didn't belong to her by any means necessary. It also sounds like the foundation of a mangina. Here, eat this, Adam. Yes, dear. In the previous chapter, chapter 2, Adam had actually managed to name all the animals with no woman to distract him. And the second passage I want to share comes from 1 Corinthians 7. The entire chapter gives the context by which I specifically want to highlight verses 32 as well as 33. He that is unmarried careth for the things that belong to the Lord, how he may please the Lord. But he that is married careth for the things that are of the world, how he may please his wife. That line speaks for itself, I think. The last passage comes from Revelation 14, verses 3, 4, and 5. And they sung as it were a new song before the throne, and before the four beasts and the elders. And no man could learn the song but 144,000, which were redeemed from the earth. These are they which were not defiled by women, for they were virgins. These were redeemed among men, being the first fruits unto God and unto the Lamb. And in his mouth was found no guile, for they were without fault before the throne of God. Not defiled with women, are they actually virgins, Sandman? Grant that these guys are a rare bunch, but why use the word defiled? Women defile men. Well, when you think about it, Jesus went to the cross never being married, and the guy actually walked on water. Well, Sean, thanks for your donation as well as sharing these verses. And the way I see it, the moral of the story is 144,000 true force loneliness type of guys will inherit the earth. But seriously, I believe that the New and Old Testament were written by men to control men, by civilizing us so we could come together and build a civilization under one unified culture and belief system. And I really hope you understand this one day the same way that I've learned it. It's a system built on shame and guilt. In the past, men and women had a magical guy in the clouds in his robe and slipper shaming them. Today, however, men are being shamed by women, and females are completely shameless and living guilt-free. Christianity is a form of mind control that works on both the males and the females. But nowadays, the only mind control left in our society is the golden vagina on men. And I'm sorry to disagree with you, but you will probably agree with me, Sean, that you feel guilt and shame when you commit a sin. It's almost like there's a tiny little wife in your head shaming your bad behaviors. And the same is true for women. But everything changed the moment we dumped religion out of our lives, along with the morality in marriage. In the past, marriage was a trap for both males and females, and today it's a trap for men, and an opportunity for females instead. When men believe in God, Jesus, and the devil, they end up sacrificing themselves for their flock, i.e. men. And on the other hand, women become like Judas or the devil, willing to nail us to the divorce court cross. It was okay for men to be mangina so long as women had a little voice in their heads as well, policing them about what was right and wrong. Churches were like guilt and shame brainwashing and re-education centers that everyone had to go to in the past. It wasn't perfect and it was dogmatic, but it's still better than what we have today. Christianity and most major world religions build incredible amounts of guilt into their followers to marry one person and stay with that person for life. Both the man and the woman are usually trapped inside of marriage, and they hate it, and they often have a terrible quality of life. But the trade-off is for their children, civilization, as well as public institutions, which flourish while both males and females suffer in their adult years in the marriage trap. And in the past, religion kept us there. But with the introduction of no-fault divorce, as well as most churches being converted into loft apartments, libraries, and gyms, as well as brew houses, now the legal and theological framework from 50 to 60 years ago is all but gone. All that's left is an institution of marriage where women exploit men and where men stick around for sex. Once the spark dies and she gets bored, the man is often booted out. Without all women in society adopting religious beliefs, the average woman is not going to behave herself. All it takes is one bad girl or one bad apple, no pun intended, and the entire bushel of women is absolutely ruined. That's why we can't seem to have an Awalt, because women are like sponges soaking up the value system of the other women around them. And now with smartphones, one bad apple in America basically rots a bushel of women in sub-Saharan Africa through the internet. Women's bad values are spreading everywhere, but men still have a leash attached to women's vaginas with which women control us. But on the other hand, women have absolutely no leash attached to them. Their leash used to be the fear of being left out to die all alone because she needed a man for survival. And if she misbehaved, the man would discipline her, which is also not allowed today. The question we should be asking is how to remain civilized as well as how to continue to reproduce now that both men and women have figured out the marriage trap. Without religion to guilt and shame women, marriage is absolutely hopeless. Today women have become unhappy and unsatisfied, having to settle for a guy that she doesn't really want. And men, while generally happier than women in a committed relationship, they understand that it could all come crashing down at any point, regardless of what he does in his life. What kind of a man wants to live like that? Always fearful that the worst will happen to him and that he'll lose his family. And women have stripped men of their manhood and self-respect in marriage, so why would we want that either? The story of Eve eating the apple from the tree of knowledge and then giving it to Adam to eat teaches men that all his problems began with women. He was in an ideal utopia until she ruined it all by being unable to resist the temptation, and now he has to toil, work, and die. The apple should be replaced by the vagina today. That's the real forbidden fruit. Once you have it, you can't go back to eating mom's leftover lasagna. I know that's a bad and incestuous analogy, and I just couldn't help myself. Sean, I just want you to take away from this video that Christianity is funny because it creates an incredible guilt complex in the hearts and minds of men. As you mentioned earlier, a man that has a weakness for women and marries one will only think of low worldly things. But a man that rises above his biological imperatives is still supposed to become a mangina to the man in the clouds. I think most men will either be manginas towards God, to other men above them, women, or their children. That's the sad truth. That most men are not courageous enough to be leaders and will always be followers. I've heard so many stories about how leaders are born and not made, and I never really believed that. The way I see it, leaders are men that have grown strong because they've grown sick and tired of all the weakness that surrounds them, and they yearn for something else, something more. Most are followers that only care about earthly things because in order to continue eating from her forbidden apple, he needs to be productive. But if he eats from her fruit but doesn't eat from the rest of the tree of knowledge, it's quite the opposite. Sex is a draining experience and takes a man's focus as well as energy, and in return it provides temporary peace, but at what cost? In the past, marriage was a trap that worked for society as well as both men and women. Men wanted to know that they weren't working for nothing and wanted to actually leave a physical as well as genetic legacy. What legacy do most men leave today? They live like Sims so they don't actually rock the boat too hard and upset their wives. Men are willing to do whatever it takes to keep a woman happy in a marriage, even if it means the man giving up his own happiness and the woman is still not happy in the end. At least men in the past knew they were going to have safety at home like an island in a hostile world. Modern marriage and the workplace offer nothing more than shaming, guilt, and the threat of the guy losing his family. That is the modern marriage trap for men. While for women, marriage is like a Bob Barker showcase showdown, and every single guy that she uses and dumps in her life is like a Plinko chip. She drops him from the top of the board, and as he falls, she hopes that she actually wins the jackpot. Men in modern marriage are like props on a game show. That's what we men have been reduced to. And I don't believe in God, but if there is a God, then I'm sure that he wants this insanity to end sooner or later. The Bible essentially reflects what men have always thought about for the last few thousand years. So once again, Sean, I guess the moral of this entire video is that the true forced loneliness guys will inherit the world, according to the Bible. Who knows, maybe they'll end up being one of the 144,000 that get pulled off the earth during the fabled rapture, where they'll get beamed naked into the heavens while their clothing remains down on earth. But I think more Bible-Belt Christians have been watching too much Star Wars. A good Christian is not like Obi-Wan Kenobi or Yoda disappearing once they're killed off and then returning as blue Force ghosts. Instead, a Christian cannot remain in a society that is not completely Christian because of the toxic sludge of feminism and gynocentrism, which has created a toxic society filled with radioactive tampons and mangina douchebags. And isn't it ironic that virgin shaming has gotten so bad that many Christians would rather lose their virginity and disobey God than live with the shame of keeping their virginity in the first place? Neither Christianity nor the modern equality and feminism will work in the long term. Without women fearing man, God, shame, or guilt, women won't behave themselves. Christianity kept things in check for a really long time and in balance. And it wasn't a healthy balance, but it was still a balance nonetheless. Men going their own way, much like the fabled God, probably stand for truth. And if I'm wrong, then so be it. Nature is full of deception, and one organism often takes advantage of another. But that doesn't mean that we men have to be happy about our evolutionary destiny to be taken advantage of by women. We have the power to rise up against them, much the same way that gynocentrism has risen up against us. Anyways, that's all I've got to say for today. Thank you, Sean, for your donation. And as for everyone else out there, please follow me on Twitter or like me on Facebook to get tomorrow's video today. Thanks for taking your daily dose of red pills. And remember, a red pill a day keeps the divorce lawyers away. So enjoy the rest of your day, and cheers. Hi everyone, Sandman here. Today's video is brought to you by a donation from Nick, and here's what he has to say. Greetings, Sandman. I've come across possibly one of the most obscene examples of female materialism and stupidity on display for all eyes to see. I'm referring to the 60th birthday music video produced by the Kardashian and Jenner princesses for their beloved matriarch, Kris Jenner. Could you possibly watch the video and analyze its content from a MGTOW perspective? Any jabs that you'd like to take at the absurdity of this video and what American culture has come to would also be appreciated. Well, Nick, usually I thank people for their donation and topic suggestion. But in this case, I want to thank you for the donation, but not the video link that you sent me. We are dumber as a society because of this cringe-worthy video of the Kardashian women singing their happy birthday song to their mother. I actually felt physically nauseous listening to this video. The 60th birthday video for Kris Jenner was supposed to be a thank you from her to all her businesses, clients, as well as friends. In this video, there are also thank yous to Nobu Malibu, Chanel, Oprah, Valentino, Chic Places, as well as many other celebrities. They even thanked the Beverly Hills Hotel as well as Costco. This entire video reeks of horrible status seeking and shows Jenner and the Kardashians singing probably the worst off-key song in the history of the world. But obviously this was done intentionally to show that they're authentic to everybody else. But we all know what keeping up with the Kardashians is all about. It's about trying to prop themselves up to the status of America's new royalty. They are famous for not being famous. They surround themselves with famous sports celebrities, rappers, fashion designers, and actors. They're like swine rolling around in famous people's filth, hoping that some of that fame transfers over to them. Clearly from this video we can see that they can't sing and they have zero talent. They are fame vampires and have successfully become reality television stars, have their own beauty product lines, fashion boutiques, as well as clothing businesses. They became famous for nothing more than hanging around with other famous people. Kim Kardashian succeeded where people like Pamela Anderson and Paris Hilton didn't with her sex video with Ray J. Before that, she was a stylist for Lindsay Lohan. So the strategy of rolling around in famous people's filth and trying to steal their mojo has certainly worked for all of them. That's why this thank you video is perfect, because it thanks all the people they stole mojo from to get to where they are today. Fame through association. And just a warning to anyone actually thinking of viewing this video that I shared in the description below. The ending is really scary with Caitlyn Jenner, formerly known as Bruce Jenner, in a bathtub, and I literally wanted to vomit.
Oh.
And I think for good old Bruce Jenner living with the Kardashians showed him that women have the upper hand in our society for nothing more than having a golden vagina. And I blame that as one of the main reasons that he got confused with his own original male gender.
Oh, sure.
Ironically, Bruce Jenner was almost selected to be Superman back in the 1970s. And in the end, he went from almost being Superman to becoming Super Caitlyn. But luckily for the world, Christopher Reeves ended up becoming Superman back in the late 70s. But with regards to the drama associated with Bruce Jenner's transformation into Caitlyn Jenner, it's rather crazy and has certainly played into the Kardashian clan's popularity. Bruce Jenner is also a perfect example of the feminization of men in America, as well as a representative for the rise of feminism in America too. Women have more power and respect, so if a man becomes transgendered or gets a sex change operation, he will have gained the admiration of men as well as the trust from women. And on top of that, women won't hate Caitlyn Jenner because she's not a she, but they also won't try and exploit her like they do men because she's a she. For some reason, women love when men get sex change operations, and I've noticed this up close and personal. And I've never seen women more happier to meet and greet and hug a woman that was once a man. It's rather peculiar. I sometimes wonder if it validates their existence as women, or does it mean one less man to oppress them in the imaginary patriarchy? But with regards to the Kardashians, not producing anything of significant value and getting rich and famous is now the new American dream. And the Kardashians are the perfect embodiment of that dream. As far as I can tell, all this Kardashian nonsense started back in 2007 after the release of Kim Kardashian's sex tape.
Oh boy.
It used to be that in America, if you did something objectionable, such as making a sex tape, your career was over. But all of this type of monkey business started when Pamela Anderson made her sex tape with Tommy Lee. And then it was Paris Hilton that proved to me that you could become famous for doing absolutely nothing. Notice that she had her Simple Life reality show as well. American culture has gone downhill immensely today because you can become famous without achieving anything. At least Bruce Jenner ran in the Olympics and had his face plastered all over the Wheaties boxes because of it. He did the impossible and became a wealthy athlete when it wasn't popular to do so. The same goes for the Kardashians' father, who was a lawyer to some of Los Angeles' most rich and powerful families. I think Kim Kardashian just copied Paris Hilton's model of success and built further upon it. Women usually copy what other successful women have done before, or they mimic the behavior or success of men to attract them. It's all about being a chameleon. And there's no such thing as the law of attraction as far as I'm concerned. It's more about mirroring the success of others that came before your time and being a copycat. And that's what Kim Kardashian has done so well. Also with Kim Kardashian, her mother is her agent and also pimped her out to Playboy. That's just how bad America has gotten these days. Mothers selling the bodies of their very own grown-up daughters. And I wouldn't be surprised if her mother told her to make the sex tape in the first place. And do you guys really think that her father would pimp her out the same way that her mother has pimped her out, as well as her sisters? Women have no shame when it comes to using their own sexuality, or even using their own children's sexuality to make money. They could have made something of their lives and followed in their father's footsteps and possibly became lawyers or something important. And her father is probably turning in his grave right now because his own daughter dishonored his Armenian family heritage in this way. The Kardashian matriarch married a successful lawyer and then a famous sports celebrity. Now her daughters are marrying basketball players and rappers. They're all following in the footsteps of their gold-digging mother. Now all they have to do is find some 80-year-old Texas oil tycoon for Caitlyn Jenner to marry. She needs to get into the gold-digging spirit as well. Why apply yourself and work hard to make something of
80-year-old
yourself
gold
in this
digging
world?
tycoon.
The new American dream will soon be to get a sex change operation as a man and marry a wealthy 80-year-old man and take his fortune. America, and more specifically New York and Los Angeles, have become so status and finance driven that they're actually ruining the rest of the country by exporting their terrible value systems. At this point, the Kardashians and Jenners can do no wrong. But I say it's wrong to destroy American culture and value systems so you can sell more beauty products and drive around in a Bentley. That's what happens when you live in a society with little to no morality. People are willing to destroy everything so they can get a small piece of the pie for themselves. If people 30 or 40 years ago could only see what the country was going to turn into, they never would have created the Brady Bunch back then. I've said it before that the Brady Bunch actually helped the divorce culture in America because people that got divorced expected, if they got remarried, then they would just become like the Brady Bunch as well. And ironically, the Brady Bunch came out around the same time as the introduction of no-fault divorce. The only difference is that the Brady Bunch were a manufactured fantasy family, but the Kardashians are a real family, or so they say. Well, as real as can be written for a reality television show. The only good thing about reality television is that it's actually going to die, and Netflix isn't even producing reality TV anymore. So this insanity is leaving television and now going online. And because it's a lot harder to make money online, I think the age of the reality television star is finished, as we are now well into the YouTube celebrity era. And because everything is about doing things yourself, outside of beauty channels and Jenna Marbles, most women will never actually have successful channels such as FPS Russia, Epic Rap Battles of History, Smosh, Epic Mealtime, or even PewDiePie. Without men to produce professional quality content, women have an insanely difficult time getting their production values up higher. You have to be a jack of all trades to make it online, and women certainly won't be able to pull that off. The only women that are doing well are musicians and those actually able to hire production companies and men to produce their content for them. Ironically, I offered one woman earlier this year a chance to travel with me while I created a channel following her around. Similar to Fun for Louie, but with a woman, and the idea was also to do a daily travel blog. She was up for it at first, and then when she realized the amount of work that was required, she didn't seem to be interested anymore. Probably because I expected her to do a lot of work and pull her own weight. Women can produce content now with their iPhones, and I get female clients all the time telling me that they produce content on their own and they don't need me anymore. But that doesn't mean they should. And I often ask them who's going to edit your footage together into a coherent product. I'm optimistic about the new man's media that's rising up. I have very high hopes for the internet as well as YouTube content. It's based on merits and quality instead of the slut culture of sexual favors that Hollywood, as well as many network television shows, are based on. And I'm sharing a link down below called The 100 Best YouTube Channels of 2015. And if you watch the channels, you'll notice that 90% of them are channels created by men and for men. The successful channels for women are all about cooking, consumption, as well as makeup tutorials.
Oh boy, I hate
Almost all
makeup tutorials.
successful channels these days are done by men. YouTube is free and democratic and based on the imagination. If a woman's YouTube channel sucks, then she's not going to have anyone there to watch it. And with YouTube taking off and becoming more and more popular each and every single day, ordinary television is dying, and the reign of terror by the Kardashians is finally coming to an end. Women can complain all they want to Google and YouTube and say it's not fair that they aren't getting as many views and subs as men, but suck it up, Buttercup. Your days of riding the TV or film producer carousel and getting cast in a show is basically over. And why would a man share profits with you if he can do everything by himself, become pseudo-famous, and produce everything on his own? That's about all I have to say. And just a warning to everyone, the Kardashian video is really bad, and it'll make your eyes, your ears, as well as your heart bleed. One last thing before I finish this video. I poured over Google Trends for last month for MGTOW and saw something rather interesting. Washington, D.C. and Ottawa, Canada seem to be places where the largest number of online searches for the term MGTOW are now coming from. Both are capital cities, and maybe the governments in North America are finally starting to pay some attention to us. This could be a very scary thing if they try to subvert us. But right now I think they're just trying to gather information and figure us out. But how do you stop a cultural movement that's for the most part silent? MGTOW Online is just the tip of the iceberg of a giant and quiet cultural shift. Anyways, thank you, Nick, for your donation, and as for everyone else out there, Please follow me on Twitter or like me on Facebook to get tomorrow's video today. Thanks for taking your daily dose of red pills. And remember, a red pill a day keeps the divorce lawyers away. So enjoy the rest of your day, and cheers. Hi everyone, Sandman here. Today's video is brought to you by a donation from Brian, and he wanted me to dedicate this donation to a topic that someone else brought up. So I've decided to bring up a story about a YouTuber known as Senator Tombstone, and here's what he has to say. Hi Sandman, the problem with TFL or true forced loneliness types of guys is the forced element part. Being alone is fine, but only when it's your choice. If you want relationships, be they platonic friendships with men or women, or romantic relationships with women, it is extremely painful when no one wants to be your friend or even your lover. I was the guy in junior and senior high school who desperately wanted to fit in, but still ended up eating lunch alone or awkwardly sharing a table with his fellow students, with whom I was not close and were sometimes antagonistic towards me. My adult friendships have been very limited as well. In fact, I presently have no friends outside my family. I get along with all my coworkers, but it's also superficial. The difference between my youthful ostracism and my self-imposed adult aloofness is that the latter is a choice. I honestly have no desire to have any close friends. I get invited to happy hours, poker games, and other after-hour get-togethers, but I never attended one, and I never likely will. I actually hate eating lunch with other people. I prefer eating my lunch at a desktop or an empty table with my iPod than I do with my coworkers. It's not that I don't like people.
iPod. This video
it's
must
just
be
that I
many
never
years
actually
old.
learned how to connect with people and form genuine friendships when I was a child. So it is impossible for me to do so as an adult. I always feel alone and feel like an outcast, even in a crowd, while at work, and sometimes even around my family. As far as women go, Sandman, you're spot on when you said that TFLers will fall headfirst into the first vagina they have access to, as it was for me. Any woman that embraces a TFLer for who they are is not a woman worth your time. The fact that they're interested in a man with TFL issues is indicative that they also have issues of their own. Up until I was 25, I lived in my mother's basement. I was not obese, I worked, and I paid a nominal monthly rent, but yeah, I was a total loser and had nothing going for me. Then I met a woman that became my first wife. There were so many issues and red flags, i.e. carousel riding, daddy issues, constantly needing male attention, and still hanging around with her ex-boyfriend. But I didn't care, as that was the first woman who ever actually gave me the time of day, and I had a long-term relationship with. After 6 months, we eloped, and the next 3 years were utter hell. Everyone in my family warned me about her, but I still couldn't stop myself. I knew they were right, but I thought that I could make it work. I did not want to be alone anymore, and I went from my mother's basement to her parents' basement. My wife was also an insanely jealous, histrionic narcissist who accused me of having an incestuous relationship with my own sister. She was jealous of any woman that was prettier than she was, and the mere mention of another woman, whom she did not know, would basically start a fit of anger and destructive rage. Within a year, her parents made us move out of their house because of all the infighting. So we lived together for 2 more years and had a child, before finally getting divorced. After we split up, I ended up moving back into my mother's basement. I hardly saw my family when we were married, so I spent the next year just getting back in touch with my family in the first place. That was probably the best year of my life, but for some reason I didn't learn my lesson, and within less than a year, I was once again dating another woman. In fact, she was the first woman that I dated after my divorce. In a little more than a year and a half, that woman and I were also married. She's wife number 2 and is infinitely better than wife number 1. But since I was not aware of all my issues when I married her, that meant I married someone who was willing to settle for me being a loser. Stephen Molyneux once said that your partner is a reflection of yourself, and I think that this is also the case with me. I was raised by a single mother, and my parents were divorced when I was only 2 years old. My dad moved away and then died about 10 years later, and I barely knew him. My mother never verbally or physically abused me, but she did the opposite. Instead, she praised me excessively as well as undeservedly. Excessive praise and excessive criticism can often trigger narcissism in people, and although I do not have NPD, I can see certain traits of narcissism in myself, i.e. aloofness, detachment, as well as objectifying people. I attribute this to being raised by a single mother and suffering the trauma of losing a parent at the age of 12, and never receiving any therapy for it. I hate narcissism and actively fight these types of tendencies, but I have to admit that they're there. Now I'm married and have 3 kids, so I can never be alone, even if I wanted to. If only I was raised by 2 parents in a positive and stable relationship, instead of by a single mother. Then maybe I wouldn't be in the situation where I'm at right now. It's not that I have a bad life, but I wasted most of it and I spent the rest of it catching up. But now I have to make sure that my children end up better than I did. My point is this, Sandman. For TFLers, the grass is not always greener in the land of the relationship. Before you end your stint as a hermit, make sure you get your head checked out right. Remember, if you didn't get rid of your issues, then you'll probably meet a woman with similar or worse issues and will end up being worse off together than you were alone. Well, thanks for your story, Senator Tombstone. I very much like you was a true force loneliness and thirsty guy up until the middle of high school. I didn't have any girlfriends or even friends. But then all of a sudden I started working out and women started paying attention to me, and I could play sports and gain the respect and friendships of other students. Not because of who I was, but because what I looked like and what I could do. But I was thirsty nonetheless for female attention and took the wrong attention when I got it. I never felt good enough to have the higher quality women in my life. No matter how many times they were there hanging around with me, the normal and extremely good looking girls being obvious as hell that they liked me, I still ignored them for women that were damaged. Being thirsty for so long made me angry at all the pretty girls that never gave me the attention that I wanted in the first place. So even to this day I feel that leading them on and not giving them the time of day is a sort of punishment. I have broken the hearts of women that followed me for basically years afterwards, hoping to hook up with me, and they often followed me around and wondered why I turned them down for more damaged and less attractive women. I was socially and emotionally stunted and couldn't interact with women that were on the same level as me, physically and mentally, because I didn't have the tools to communicate without embarrassing myself and saying the wrong things at the wrong time. I was in a sort of no man's land. I could get women's attention and keep it for a few months, but they realized after the fact that there was something wrong with me, both socially as well as emotionally. And that damage is still there to a certain extent today. I was always a thirsty guy when it came to relationships and friendships because I never really had them in the first place when I was younger. And I don't have the full range of emotions that other people do. I don't feel my way through emotional problems. I think through them. And when a woman disrespects me, I don't feel it because I don't know what disrespect and respect are supposed to feel like. I have to think about her actions and my response after the fact and construct an elaborate narrative as to how I'm supposed to feel. Many women have been incredibly frustrated by me because they weren't able to manipulate me because I couldn't actually feel for them the normal ways. I did nice things for them and they thought to themselves, he must be under our spell because he's doing what we want. But the real reason I was a mangina had nothing to do with being thirsty for sex or even female attention, but simply for any attention from any other human being possible. I was thirsty for that.
Hold on, I have a song. Alexa, play Forever Virgins.
I can't find the song Forever Virgins.
What? Alexa, play MC Virgins.
Shuffling songs by MC Virgins on Amazon Music.
Alexa, play Forever Virgins by MC Virgins.
I couldn't find Forever Virgins by MC Virgins, but here is other music by MC Virgins.
Alexa, stop. It's so weird. I swear that was on there.
Women in my life were often tricked thinking that I was in love with them while I was desperate for human interaction because growing up I didn't seem to get much of that. Going my own way was incredibly difficult because it meant dealing with being alone again like I was in my younger years, and also having to resolve my issues from my childhood. Because I kept picking the wrong woman over and over again because I was incomplete, and so I let women into my life that were also incomplete. Usually they were lazy, passive-aggressive, annoying, and well below what I should have been dating. That's been the pattern of my thirst my entire life. In Senator Tombstone, you describe how I grew up pretty much the same way. I spent the first 2 years of high school sitting alone in the lunchroom, so I decided to instead spend my lunch hours learning how to use Photoshop, developing black and white film, or basically editing on the Super VHS editing suites. My eventual saving grace when it comes to socialization was that women gave me the time of day later in high school because of the way that I looked and nothing else. So I no longer had to be thirsty anymore. I could drink from the fountain all I wanted. But I was hesitant to do so because being TFL up to the age of 14 or 15 meant that this new world where I was popular and suddenly could be with women was rather foreign to me. I saw it as a lie, something that could be taken away from me at any point in time. It was an illusion, and I didn't know how to handle it. How does a person accept going from being hated and ignored to being desired and in demand? That's the issue that many true force loneliness guys that start dating might actually have to get over. Things seem too good to be true, and you feel like if you reach out and grab one of your new options in life, you'll get burned. So you sabotage yourself by still taking the option that you had as a loser. Or when it comes to women, dating the first woman that comes along and gives you the time of day, and then marrying her. Senator Tombstone, I feel exactly the way that you did. I feel that I wasted much of my life and basically had to spend a lot of my time catching up with others. I feel that the last 2 years of my life building this YouTube channel and charting a new course in my life are the most important things that I've ever done. I've also learned how dangerous all women are these days, and I also know that I won't be happy in a relationship where a gun is pointed in my head my entire life. I know that I'd be happy raising a child brought into this world through surrogacy, and hopefully I can raise a kid that doesn't have a huge emotional hole in his heart. But I also know that to be a good man, you actually have to experience major traumas in your life to make you grateful for all the positive things that you have. That's why I think that thirsty true force loneliness guys are both blessed as well as cursed. They don't know how to deal with the insanity of women. But they're cursed if they eventually get the option to date and marry, because they'll basically make the same terrible mistakes like Senator Tombstone and myself have already made. I know that there are true force loneliness guys out there listening to this, and my advice is to improve yourselves and become better men. But don't let women gain the upper hand over you because it's easy for them to do so, because you basically have the ego of a 5 or even 10-year-old child. And any attention from a woman will be perceived of as good attention. You'll feel like a complete human being, but emotionally you never will. You will always be like Pinocchio wanting to be a real boy, or possibly even like Data from Star Trek The Next Generation, wanting to be a real man. But you'll never be complete, and you don't have to be. Use that frustration in your emotional stunted self to explore things from a different perspective. Try connecting your feelings to your hobbies and adventures in your life, and not to the women that have magically showed up and basically want to use you for nothing more than your resources. Try not to be happy as a slave. You spent your early days in life as a free man without a master, and now you're throwing away your freedom without even realizing it in the first place by dating women and marrying them. Being alone sucks, but men spending time alone have made incredible discoveries. Einstein forced himself into isolation to discover the great things that he did. The same goes for Tesla. Social isolation often leads to clarity of thought and insight into subjects that other people will never think about. And I'm glad to have gotten over my emotional thirst for women, and am free to desire the best for myself. And if I can do this, then all the true force loneliness guys out there can also do it as well. Learn from their mistakes and free themselves from their natural desires and become something more. But first you have to have a chance to drink from that fountain in the first place. And then you have to learn not to be thirsty anymore. Thanks again, Senator Tombstone, for your inspiring story. And thank you, Brian, for your donation. And as for everyone else out there, please follow me on Twitter or like me on Facebook to get tomorrow's video today. Thanks for taking your daily dose of red pills. And remember, a red pill a day keeps the divorce lawyers away. So enjoy the rest of your day, and cheers. Hi everyone, Sandman here. Today's video is brought to you by a donation from Navy Nuke from San Jose. And here's what he has to say. Sandman, I really appreciate your work, and you're basically like a godsend from above. I was on the path of destruction and you snapped me out of chasing women. And since I stopped chasing them, I've been able to save roughly $40,000 over the last year. So this donation is well deserved. Anyways, the topic I want you to focus on is the feminist agenda from the professors at colleges as well as universities. I'm taking a sociology class as part of my general education for my engineering degree, and there's a clear agenda forcing men to only write about the injustices of women in the United States, but none about the men. Even from my textbooks, where it clearly defines feminism as the theory of the political, economic, and social equality of the sexes. When I chose to write about men's rights, I received an F on my paper and was told that men do not have to fight for their rights because we've been in control of society for the majority of the time. I planned on reporting her comment to the dean only after I passed her easy, non-stimulating academic environment that she calls a classroom, which would have been this coming December. I just needed this hag to officially input my grades. What a sad world we live in when we have to worry about reprisals from academic professionals. Anyways, the other thing I want to talk about is how she said that all my remarks were taken out of context for the citations that I provided. Additionally, she vaguely told me that the other information was just lies from online forums, and that I needed to only provide scholarly sources. Conveniently, the online subscription the college provides for scholarly sources did not actually cover injustices to men. How can we write about our problems without the proper official tools? Colleges seem to have this feminist filter distorting the truth, making it academic suicide and preventing men from progressing in the field of social studies. Any help with regards to these two topics would be greatly appreciated. Continue doing your work. Well, Navy Nuke from San Jose, thanks for your donation as well as your comments. It's tough being in school and having your freedom of speech ripped away from you. I was a target of reprisals from my professors many years ago. They called the cops on me for hate crimes because I made an assignment that didn't share their views on homosexuality. I played the religious card, and they didn't seem to like that either. The following year, my professor that reported me also ended up dying. I remember my other gender studies classes where I actually had to watch a video of Annie Sprinkles with giant vaginas getting full arms inserted into them vigorously.
Oh!
This pissed me off, but the worst part was I was being forced to create assignments in a politically correct way. Navy Nuke, you received an F, so you should
Freaking
actually count yourself
disgusting,
lucky.
bro.
I was almost taken out of
Come
my
on,
class
what
for
freaking disgusting.
handcuffs, but they couldn't do anything as the words and pictures in my assignment weren't my own. And ironically, as an artist, we're taught to attack the status quo as well as the establishment. That's what higher learning is supposed to be all about. But they, much like yourself, were basically forcing me to create content the way they wanted. You can write about the injustices that men face, but we can't be accepted as victims. Because the moment we aren't men anymore. And the idea that feminism equals equality is sneaky weasel language. If you say you want female equality, then anyone suggesting you want female superiority can simply be led like a cow to the official definition of feminism and forced to drink the poison Kool-Aid. Women are masters of deceptive language, and that's why the truth scares them. Because it's harder to twist the truth, and it's impossible to twist the facts. It's not that women don't understand facts, it's just that they can't win an argument against them. If it's 21 degrees outside because you measure the temperature, it's impossible to twist that data to say it's 26 degrees. When you throw facts into a feminist face, they can't win, so they throw you back irrational emotions. And everything that you've said so far ties into the idea for this video, which is that women want it all. They want to subvert the field of academics, as you said, and put a feminist filter distorting the truth on everything in our society. They want lies to equal the truth, and they want men to believe their lies. They want to make it academic and financial suicide for anyone to question them as well as their beliefs. We are in a funny stage in history where women have taken over our civilization, and it's now starting to decline. Women want total control because they're scared of their own redundance and replaceability. They weren't as scared in the past because men needed them for sex, as we didn't have pornography.
Oh.
Feminism, you see, is not women trying to take advantage of men's weakness. Instead, it's a response to men developing ways to go around our biological imperatives. When we built washing machines, stoves, fridges, and central heating, we saw it as something to make women's lives easier because we love them. But women didn't see it the same way. They saw it collectively as an insult. They didn't see it as a love gesture because they'll never understand the male need to love women. They subconsciously saw these technologies as men telling women that they're replaceable. Women felt the loss of a purpose as well as a reason for existing. For some reason, they seem to be happier sewing their own clothes by hand and making food from scratch over an open fire pit. They are gatherers, and now they have nothing to gather, and that basically doesn't challenge their brains. So they're now desperately trying to keep themselves relevant by trying to take over higher education, corporate culture, and in the slightly altered famous words of Princess Leia, the more they squeeze men, the more we slip through their fingers. With new automation and technology, we're now starting to replace household duties, and all that's left is sex and reproduction. Sex is mostly taken care of with porn, and eventually love robots in VR will be the final nail in that coffin.
He has a
Children
point.
will probably also be born with artificial wombs.
I disagree with it,
Soon
but he
we
has a
might not
point.
need women to have children altogether. And women are even willing to silence other women to prevent this from happening. The link I'm sharing in the description below is really interesting, and it's about the artificial womb. It's called the sci-fi idea that we'll soon be growing babies in artificial wombs has 3 major problems. It's written by Ellie Kincaid, and it's pure propaganda designed to make women feel better about themselves and the fact that artificial wombs aren't going to basically put them out of business. But I found the third point in the article extremely interesting. Now let me get to reading some of that article so you can all see that this technology exists, but it's actually being prevented from becoming a reality by social justice warriors. So here goes. Hope for the artificial womb relies heavily on research by Dr. Helen Liu, today the director of the Reproductive Endocrinology Laboratory at Weill Cornell Medical College. Liu has managed to get cells from the endometrium, the uterine wall, to grow outside the body on a scaffolding shaped like a uterus. She even got a human embryo to implant to this recreated uterine wall successfully in 2001, and it survived for 10 days until Liu ended the experiment, according to Dawn. The US government doesn't allow research on human embryos beyond 14 days after conception. Liu continued her work on mice, and in 2003 she produced one baby mouse that gestated full term in an external uterus, though the mouse was born deformed. At that point, Lou thought that some gestation time inside a living animal would work better than complete external gestation, Don writes. Lou started implanting mouse embryos that had started growing on the external uterus in the abdomen of the mouse, and the results were indeed better. The babies were smaller than normal, but not deformed. This all sounds pretty promising, but Lou stopped her research right there. All the attention from the medical ethicists, activists, and the media put her off on the entire project. It turned out to have all these social implications, and I didn't want to deal with it, Lou told Don. With Lou directing her attention elsewhere and no record of other scientists picking off where she left off, progress on achieving complete external gestation is stalled until further notice. So there you have it, folks. The successful work on artificial wombs by a woman was stopped because of social justice warriors and activists. The technology is there, and probably a surrogate mother with a baby inside of herself for 2 to 3 months can easily have that fetus transferred out of the womb into an artificial womb, and it'll work. And the only thing Ellie forgot to mention is that the artificial womb is still being worked on in Japan. With women right now, it seems to be all or nothing. Either they make themselves relevant, or when new technology really ramps up, they'll basically become like Agent Smith in The Matrix and be obsolete. They will be free, but they won't have a purpose. They will see it as though men have robbed them of their purpose, and then they'll compete with men in the future for what few jobs remain thanks to automation. Who's an employer going to hire? An emotional, less creative and moody woman, or a man that's rational, more creative, productive, and calm? That's the choice that employers will face in the future. If they're government employers, then we know exactly who they'll pick. But private industry will probably expect more. Today's women want it all, and are instead going to lose everything if they aren't careful. Today, women treat their husbands poorly by using them as rocket boosters and then jettisoning them once they've reached a critical mass to reach orbit safely. Women want to have a career, secure living, as well as retirement, become entrepreneurs, as well as having fulfilled relationships, kids, and all of these things need time and money, and there doesn't seem to be enough to go around unless they get married and use a man as a booster rocket. Women want to have it all. They're trying to destroy men's self-esteem and demoralizing us in school so we never actually become strong enough as young adults to fight back against them. So we can basically be their booster rockets up until middle age or even beyond. There aren't as many resources to go around for everyone in the first world like there were back a generation ago. So women have to control men and take everything they can. And if they don't, then the woman next to them will. To have it all realistically not burn out and suffer, they have to make men do the parts that they don't want to do. They want money, a nice home, children, a love life, and lifestyle, and they don't basically want to suffer for any of it. So brainwashing university men to go out into the world and work and suffer is basically their platform these days. And now what's falling is more and more men go MGTOW and stop drinking the period blood Kool-Aid of higher academia. At this rate, in 50 years, it'll only be women in academia, and they don't seem to understand that the smartest men are the ones that usually don't have any higher education. And the men that go through the higher education indoctrination camps come out like me and fight against them. They want it all and will instead lose everything they have. Navy nuke from San Jose, the places that will replace academia, which was once a place where men could freely share their ideas, away from the prying ears and eyes of women, because they were basically men's clubs, are now moving online and allow us to share information more freely and much faster. Take advantage of the non-official tools such as 4chan, Reddit, YouTube, Facebook, and other social media to spread and learn our ideas. We have so many tools to discuss the injustices towards men as well as academia. Hopefully that helps, and know that you're not alone when it comes to dealing with these types of issues in school. Thanks again for your donation. As for everyone else out there, please follow me on Twitter or like me on Facebook to get tomorrow's video today. Thanks for taking your daily dose of red pills. And remember, a red pill a day keeps the divorce lawyers away. So enjoy the rest of your day, and cheers. Hi everyone, Sandman here. Today's video is brought to you by a donation from Robert in Norway, and here's what he has to say. Hi Mr. Sandman, I'm asking you to make a video concerning guys breaking up with women, and would like to hear your take on this particular subject. And the reason I bring this up is because I just broke up with a smoking hot Thai girl. The relationship lasted 2.5 years, and boy oh boy didn't it go down well with her. I just got sick and tired of her materialistic attitude and wanting more and more, and it all seemed to be like a huge loss of face to friends and family, as well as a huge punch to the face. I'm now 35 years old and ready to go my own way. Thank you very much for your videos. They're very inspirational and put a whole new light on women these days. Take care. Well, Robert, thanks for your donation as well as sharing your thoughts. We all know it's harder for guys to break up with women because once we develop feelings for women, it's really a tough thing to do. We are in a trance. And these days, courtship between men and women ends, and the so-called relationship begins once the man tells the woman that he actually loves her. Then her true colors come out because she thinks that she has him under control. Looking at relationships in that particular way, I now understand that if you're going to date a woman, as a man going his own way, it's always advisable to tell a woman that you love her before you actually do. That way you can see her true colors when she thinks she has the upper hand over you. But with regards to breakups, a guy will usually do so with a woman if she's crazy and he becomes aware who she really is before he actually falls in love with her. A woman has to hide crazy until basically under her spell. But once they get a ring on their finger, women's behavior often changes rather quickly. This is the transition from equality to female superiority. Once you marry or knock up a woman while you're actually living with her, it's over.
Yeah.
She has all the power, and you're trapped like a fly in a Venus flytrap. At this point, the breakup is dangerous for a man because he'll be left financially, emotionally, as well as socially destitute, because his loss of status will reduce his ability to find a quality woman in the future. So if he's going to find an exit, it has to be pretty early in the relationship, and towards the end of the honeymoon phase or the beginning of the settling down phase. The longer the relationship lasts, the harder it is for most blue pill men to leave. I say pull the trigger fast or provoke a woman to pull the trigger herself if she has the courage to do so. That's the best way to do it. If you act all weak at the beginning of a relationship and easily whipped, then she obviously won't respect you, but at the same time she'll believe that she has you under her control. So that will make her feel safe enough to invest in the relationship in the first place. But if you play submissive and all of a sudden you change your behavior to become more dominant, just watch how quickly the woman gets pissed off and leaves you or even tries to basically put you in your place. At that point, women see you as weak, and it's hard for them to respect you. And when you start asking for respect when she already doesn't have any for you, it'll piss her off and confuse the hell out of her. You see, I've learned that I can actually love a woman, but at the same time I've learned that it's far too dangerous to actually be in love with one. If you lose your head metaphorically, then it's more than likely that you lose your head literally. If you have assets and can be whipped, you're basically a perfect target. You're juicy. If you make her feel that you're naive around women, then she'll salivate at how easy you are to basically get what she wants from you. A stupid man with resources is like an 18-year-old bimbo with big boobs. Women just can't help themselves. That's the perfect man for a woman, rich and dumb. And if you trick her in this way, then that's
Freaking
probably
brilliant
the
right
best
there.
lesson that she's ever going to learn. She'll forever see weak men as possibly being strong in the future, and that might actually give her a head case. A man's facade
My
of
bros,
strength
I'm
is
never
weakness,
getting a
according to
girlfriend.
Warren
F that.
Farrell. But a strong man with a weak facade is channeling Sun Tzu. Appear weak to your enemy when you have strength, and appear strong when you're actually weak. Women generally want strong men, and they want to shit test them and reveal the submissive man below the surface. But they don't know how to deal with a man that's submissive and then turns out to be dominant. They have no idea what to make of a guy like that, and will emotionally mess them up for life. They will see weak men from that point on as possibly hiding their strength like chameleons. But getting back to the subject of breakups, the most powerful and manipulative women are those that can break up with a man by getting him to do it instead of pulling the ripcord themselves. By disrespecting him and playing mind games, they can often push him away and destroy his self-esteem. If he stays, then he's whipped and emotionally beaten and fully under her control. And if he leaves, then he was never really out of control and never really in love, so she couldn't really get him to do the things that she wanted in the end anyway. I've only ever had one woman break up with me in this way, and it was brilliant on her part, because she didn't have to speak a single word. It was like she was a boss or manager treating her employees so poorly that they just handed in their own resignations. She would just pass down the agency to the boyfriend for breaking up that wonderful relationship. A relationship that was no longer wonderful because she made it unpleasant for him to stay in it in the first place. That's the woman that's the master manipulator. The woman that knows to boost a weak man's ego, but at the same time destroy a strong man's ego. That's a woman not to be taken lightly. And the only way to defeat such a woman is to basically outsmart her once and never see her again. Break it off as soon as possible. Never let her get the chance to take revenge because she'll probably take it and torment you for it for all it's worth. Don't give her the satisfaction of bending yourself to basically her will. Never explain yourself and simply move on. If she wants to talk, she basically wants to play mind games. That's what you should do if she's the one that breaks up with you. But when you break up with a woman, most of the time they will basically want to call and even talk to you. The best thing you can do is cut off all contact immediately and let things
I don't know
settle
who
down. Later on,
I
if she
can't pronounce
contacts
that
you and wants to
username. I'm
spend
sorry,
time
man.
with
I don't know
you
who you
again,
are.
It's usually a trap to get you to become her emotional tampon, fix her computer or phone, or basically act like tech support. If it's not that, then she might actually want to figure out why you dumped her in the first place so she can adapt her strategy for the next guy. Another possibility is that she actually wants to go out with you again so that she can have the satisfaction of breaking up with you in the first place. Or like I found in about 60 to 70% of cases where you dump a girl, she'll often call you back because she wants to sleep with you, or possibly get back together with you because she's either lonely, hasn't found a man as good as you, or because you were a great lover and none of the men that she's been with since then have actually come close to your talents, believe it or not. And with regards to the breakup of modern marriages, 65 to 70% of them end when a woman basically leaves the marriage and files for divorce. But sometimes I wonder what the percentage of marriages are where the woman intentionally treats the man like garbage so he'll actually leave on his own. Of the 30 to 35% of men that leave the marriage willingly, probably at least half of them leave because they've been emotionally, mentally, or even physically abused. And words and mind games may not damage a person physically, but they leave emotional scars. And I'm pretty sure that the saying, sticks and stones may break my bones, but names will never hurt me, was either created by a woman or a mangina. Because the name-calling and bullying of men in our society is a blight, and most men don't even see this. And ironically, even with the name-calling and emotional torment, most guys are often too chicken shit to leave a woman because of the perception of scarcity with regards to women. If you live in a relatively small town and you're a man, you most certainly won't leave the woman because of the negative stigma, as well as spin that your girlfriend or wife will often dump onto the community. Women often lose their minds, I find, when men dump them. That's the closest I've actually ever seen a woman go to being crazy. And I'm not sure if it's a guilt trip that they're trying to lay on a guy or something
Listening
else.
to a podcast.
But
What are
I know
you doing?
for certain that they will dump shame and blame onto you if you end up
It
leaving.
says it in the
and they
title
don't
right
want
up
you to.
there.
They will say things like, "You never loved me." Or,
Oh,
"You
no, wait,
planned
no.
this all
It
along,
says it in the
you
title
used
right
me."
down there.
Shame and guilt will often be used regardless of if you are doing something wrong or not. That's to cover their tracks so you don't know if they really wanted to be with you or not. It leaves things open to interpretation and provides them out in case anyone questions them about the relationship in the first place. If someone asks her what happened between the two of you, then all she has to say is, "He didn't love me," or "He was using me for sex," even if the sex disappeared many years before. Anything to dump agency onto a man after a breakup. The best way to deal with the issues of... Hi everyone, Sandman here. Today's video is brought to you by a donation from Pete in Melbourne, Australia. And here's what he has to say. "Hey Sandman, I watched your alpha male mindset video and how in it you say that lifting weights decreases your lifespan. The video also got me wondering about bodybuilding culture as a whole. I've never been a fan of the culture, and whenever I go to the gym occasionally, I always get a shallow and empty vibe there, where most of the people who go there are only doing it for superficial reasons or because they want to be more attractive to the opposite sex instead of doing it for themselves. I'm also wondering just how many females are attracted to muscular guys in the first place, and whether there's a whole lot of basis in reality or if it's just exaggerated. I'm in my 20s and not totally red pill and still interested in dating. However, I'm an average height here in Australia at only 5'9", but I weigh 146 pounds. I'm insecure about my physique and conflicted on what I should do, as something also tells me that muscle mass is not as important as men would like to believe. It also seems that gay men are attracted to muscular guys more than women are.
What?
So do you have any advice for me, Sandman?
Well, he does have a point. I guess that is true.
Regardless of how attractive I'm perceived by females. But like you say, bodybuilding decreases your lifespan. I've lifted a lot of weights already, but I have a hard time bulking up. Perhaps I don't have the genetics for this. I also notice a lot of younger guys, especially teenagers, with body image issues. Male body image has become almost as bad as female body image these days. If someone genuinely enjoys bodybuilding, or they want to play sports, then fine. Otherwise, most of it could just be unnecessary and, like you say, unhealthy. It'd be great to hear your opinions on what I just said, and how bodybuilding is harmful and decreases your lifespan, and on the bodybuilding culture as a whole. Once again, great video, Sandman, and cheers. Well, Pete, thanks for yet another donation. Before I get into why I think that bodybuilding is bad for you long term, let me try to explain to everyone my experience with it. When I was younger, I would lift and exercise for roughly 1 hour each and every single day. When I began, I was toothpick skinny entering high school. I didn't play any sports, and I didn't do it for self-improvement. At this point, you're probably saying, Sandman probably did it in order to get the girls, and you'd be completely wrong. I did it because I was sick and tired of being picked on, bullied, as well as pushed around. When I turned 14 for Christmas, I got a weight set from my parents. 2 adjustable dumbbells and 1 big bar, and with 2 25-pound weights. The last thing I wanted to do was go to the gym and look like a fool, so I started working out at home. And when I returned to high school that following fall, people tried picking on me, and I fought them and ended up beating them off. So at that point, I didn't receive any more negative attention from guys trying to pick on me. But all of a sudden, female attention started coming my way. I was popular with the ladies, but I didn't continue to work out because of this. Instead, I continued to work out because of the fear of other guys attacking me. So year after year, I ended up getting bigger and bigger, and I worked out from the age of 14 until roughly the age of 22, every single day. I would work my upper body one day, my lower body the next, and finally do tons of cardio and ab workouts on the third. It was a 3-day cycle, and I didn't stop completely until I was in my early to mid-20s, roughly 6 to 7 years after I started. Some years I didn't miss a single day. Even when I was sick and I could barely get out of bed, I would still take my meds and hit the gym. That's just how dedicated I was. Much the same way I'm dedicated to my MGTOW channel today. On the 23rd of January, it'll be exactly 2 years since I started popping a daily dose of red pills on YouTube. I'm committed the same way that I was while I was working out in school. But when I finished school and became an adult, the threat of getting bullied and into fights evaporated, and I stopped working out. I never worked out in gyms except a few times in the beginning. It was always at home, in my home gym, while watching television, in the one environment where I actually felt safe. But working out like that took its toll on my body. And regardless of what people say with regards to working out shortening your height and stunting your growth, it probably ended up making me taller because it promotes growth hormones. But during this whole entire time I was working out, I would constantly get injuries. One time I had a partial hernia, and oftentimes I would hurt my back from incorrect postures. But with regards to it shortening a person's lifespan, it has mostly to do with the fact that many of the serious weightlifters take steroids, supplements, as well as other things. They also end up getting heart attacks. Just look at good old Arnold Schwarzenegger as he got a heart attack around the age of 50. Another reason that athletes and bodybuilders die young is something called SDS, or sudden death syndrome. In my own family, my uncle died after being a professional soccer player in his 20s.
Thanks, I
My
guess.
father played minor league soccer in Europe, and he
You're
once told me
cool
that his
too.
brother died of a massive heart attack because he overused his heart for a very long time. My mother's cousin was a professional swimmer, and he dropped dead of a heart attack around the age of 40. If you
It's all about
overuse your heart
self-confidence.
muscle and
That's
build
just
it
me.
up over a really long period of time, then you're stressing it out, so it's more likely to fail. Every time there's a marathon, there's usually someone that drops dead. It's the same when you're driving your car. The more mileage you put on it, the worse it becomes. But I believe that only happens with high impact and intensity activities. Today I spent some time with the oldest MGTOW that I know. He's 94 years old and he still walks for about an hour and a half each and every single day around the city. And he's done that for the last 30 years of his life. He gets a lot of exercise, but it's really low intensity stuff. It keeps the weight off and keeps his heart pumping in a reasonable pace. So it's not simply overusing that causes the problems. It's the type of exercise that you do in the first place. I knew a 60-year-old doctor that lifted weights, rode his bike for miles each and every single day, and one day he ended up dropping dead of a heart attack in the middle of the street when he was at the pinnacle of his health. So I've seen some people in my family as well as circle of friends that have just dropped dead after their professional athletic careers ended. If you still don't believe that men that live too much die younger, just go over to Louis Marco's channel, and you'll see him talk about many guys that died while they were in their 40s and 50s. Men that just dropped dead from steroid use are probably from overusing their bodies. It's not just death that men have to face from steroids with regards to getting cancer. A lot of the time, getting hurt while bodybuilding is a serious problem. Strains, sprains, muscle injuries that don't heal properly are just some of the issues. And if you wear away the cartilage in your body, it's not going to grow back. I knew a woman that was in her mid-20s and an avid hiker, and she injured her knee from overuse and had problems for years due to scar tissue from the operations. All that because she used up the cartilage. Again, high-intensity activities done over a long period of time have a tendency to permanently disable you or possibly even kill you early. The body wears down the more that you use it. Your skin ages faster the more sun exposure you get. In fact, 80 to 90% of all aging is caused by the sun. I believe that ultra-low intensity exercise like walking will keep you alive because it'll strengthen your body, but it won't put too much strain on your heart. After all, pushing an engine to its extremes tends to wear away the pistons a lot faster. I know one 60-year-old cyclist, another guy that plays tennis, and the third into skiing that have all had to have hip replacement surgery. Well, that's not going to kill you. Who knows what type of super germs you might actually be exposed to while in the hospital. There are also many people that get titanium hip replacements that are leaking toxic chemicals into their bodies that are killing them slowly.
Ooh.
I don't want to scare anyone into not exercising. I think it's rather important to do a hike once in a while, to go for a walk for a couple hours, or do some low to moderate medium exercise. But lifting day in and day out is going to kill you, and when you stop lifting, you'll more than likely continue eating the way that you did in the past. You'll become obese, and then you'll have a heart attack from that. If you're taking lots of supplements, that's probably going to kill you as well, because in the end, there are many scientific studies that say that taking supplements can actually shrink your lifespan by about 25 to 30%.
All right, that's enough
So when you
Xbox
lift,
for
there are
one day.
multiple causes that can kill you. Your heart, organ damage, to cancer, and I'm also including a link in the description to an article called The Problem with Taking Too Many Vitamins. And it talks about this issue that I just spoke about. Think of all the products and enhancers that men typically take while they work out. All of that is a recipe for disaster. And I forgot to mention the joint and mobility issues leading to other complications. Someone recently sent me a comment, and for the life of me, I can't remember his name. But the comment was about him working as a nurse or caretaker in a retirement residence, and that the majority of the people that are there that were overweight while they were younger weren't mobile while they got older. Their joints got worn out, and all that extra weight became difficult to carry once they got older and their muscles got weaker. There also weren't any old people there that were muscular while they were younger, because you could see all the old photos of themselves that they kept in their rooms. Anyways, Pete, with regards to body male image, the situation is getting worse than you know. Someone mentioned their teen son in an article that I recently read, and how he was getting mocked in the high school locker room because he still had his pubic hair. As a lot of teenagers these days watch tons of pornography, they see men in such videos that are bald as turkeys on Thanksgiving, so they try to emulate them. Men are becoming hairless, muscular, with clean, smooth skin, and women are getting covered in tattoos and fat and hairy. Some girls are even dyeing their pubic hairs purple and red, while boys are shaving theirs off. If you're a teenage boy and you have hair on your body and you're skinny, then you'll probably get picked on constantly. But ironically, a lot of these boys these days are obese or overweight and shaving their bodies, so they often end up looking like overweight, prepubescent, hairless girls. It's really sad to see this happening, but that's what you get when women expect more from men than men expect from women. The man has to either look hypersexualized to attract a woman, or you actually have to have an insane amount of money. Otherwise, the girl is going to go elsewhere. Pete, you can always gain 10 or 20 pounds of muscle, but just remember that if you stop lifting, you'll be very likely to continue eating like you did, and then all of a sudden you'll balloon up to 190 pounds when you enter your 30s. It's a tricky thing related to calorie intake, and that basically raises your risk for heart attack by carrying all that extra weight. Your genes have probably given you a fast metabolism, and that's a great thing. By working out, you can actually speed it up even more, but if you stop, then it slows down. And working out is usually a huge commitment because you need to spend an hour a day for many months before you see any serious results. And you need military-like discipline to pull this off. And the whole idea that women like skinny guys is pure BS. When I was skinny, girls didn't like me, and then when I put on 20 to 30 pounds of muscle, they started to approach me in the hopes that I would ask them out. They seem to equate muscles with male utility, and if you're a big beefy brute, even when your muscles are too big for your body or build, you still get a lot of female attention that you didn't get before. A lot of women will say that you're too big and you should work out less, but ironically, those are the same women that didn't ask you out before. For some reason, women don't like it if men are good looking and get too much attention from other women, so they put you down with sly comments to destroy your self-esteem, kind of in a sneaky way. Anyways, that's all I've got to say for today. Thanks again, Pete, for your donation, and as for everyone else out there, please follow me on Twitter or like me on Facebook to get tomorrow's video today. Thanks for taking your daily dose of red pills, and remember, a red pill a day keeps the steroids away. So enjoy the rest of your day, and cheers. Hi everyone, Sandman here. Today's video is brought to you by a donation from Mr. Anonymous, and here's what he has to say. Hey Sandman, I was watching Investigative Discovery, and one particular show discussed the murder of a woman who was sexually active in the New York community. She had actively been picking up men at bars for one-night stands, and lo and behold, she was killed in her own house by some random creep. This woman was sleeping with each and every single alpha male at the bar and having her pick, which completely sickens me. I feel no pity for her ultimate fate. The newspapers told it how it was, and she received little pity as well. Every woman on the program gave some lame excuse saying murder is murder, and I agree that it is, I just don't feel as bad for her as I should. Maybe if she had some standards and morals, she wouldn't be dead. It made me realize something as well. There's a double standard. Yes, men are absolutely allowed to be whores. We can because not all of us will or can even be successful at it. Not all of us are the 10% of men. We all don't have chiseled jawlines, standing 6'4" with a huge bulge protruding from our rock star genes. Women, on the other hand, even the ugliest girl will get picked up for the taking. It takes no skill whatsoever. It's like the German boy from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, Augustus Gloop. As we see him in his gluttonous love for candy, leading to his ultimate demise. We see the same for females finally getting a rest from the cock carousel. The funny thing is, she only stops because she's unable to find a person who can commit. So when females hop from cock to cock like there's no tomorrow, it's absolutely disgusting to see. As for men who are the 10% with the vagina on their side, women don't care. They would gladly be part of his harem. They will continue patiently waiting for him to be worthy of his sole commitment. I think this is what makes men so upset, that we put women on a pedestal and we believe it holds value. But in reality, the only thing it holds is a stench. My friends, no woman is wound-free. I spent time with a girl here on the coast for a year. We still follow each other on Instagram after we stopped seeing each other, and I see this poor blue pill schmuck buying roses and treating her like a princess. He drives her around on his Hyundai while she used to bar hop on the back of my Harley Davidson. She still messages me to chill, but thank goodness I'm 500 miles away. The major problem is we men have to live up to such a high standard, but we want their best in return. We want to be their top dog. We want her creating us the wild beast muscle stallion that she used to ride. What is it all for? So much damn risk for so little reward. Do we turn in our balls, financial freedom, and security just to have a chance at guaranteed vagina? Sorry, Sandman, this might be a huge rant, but I'm sure that you'll do your magic and work in a topic. I guess the topic should be that there are double standards and that no woman is safe. So thank you, Sandman. Well, Mr. Anonymous, after hearing about how you want to take women on a ride on your motorcycle, like a muscle beast stallion, you inspired me to call this video Easy Riding Women. Particularly because of your comments regarding your motorcycle, and also because women tend to hop from man to man, like getting on and off motorcycles. There's even a film called Two-Lane Blacktop that I reviewed on this channel last year that depicts this perfectly. Two young guys spend the entire film with a young teenage girl driving across America, and there's even another old guy in a different car that throughout the entire film is trying to get with her. And in the end, just before the credits begin to roll, you think that she's going to stay with the two young guys, but instead she sees a guy on a motorcycle and hops on the bike with a guy that she doesn't even know. For a young man seeing this back then, it would have been shocking because it shows a woman devoid of emotion just hopping from one man to another on the American interstate system. Seemingly she hasn't even spoken a word with this guy, but she just gets on his bike and rides away. For all the talk in our society about women getting raped and sexually assaulted, they sure tend to have a lot of flings, and if they're attracted to you, they immediately want to get with you in the sack. I wish someone told me this when I was younger because I spent a lot of time dating and waiting for the right moment when in reality, the right moment was the moment I met her. But if a woman is willing to be with a man so quickly, then it shows zero loyalty to that individual male on her part. It's purely animal desire as well as instinct. And in the case of the woman in New York, it's that type of desire that led to her untimely death. As we all know, women are often paranoid about their personal safety, but are still willing to invite a strange man that they barely know into their bedrooms. This is a complete paradox, and every guy should know if she wants you, then usually you can score right away, especially if she's already been riding the carousel for a while. Popular culture always depicts men as being dogs and cheaters, but attacks men for slut-shaming against women. You're right, women don't care about the top 10% of men, who are essentially riding the vagina roller coaster to their cock carousel. It was Turd-Flinging Monkey, I believe, that said that women are like roller coasters. The wait is long, the ride is short, and there's a long line of men waiting to get on behind you. For women, it's the complete opposite. The carousel has dozens, if not hundreds, of horses or wild stallions. There's only one woman on the entire ride, and as it spins around, she jumps from horse to horse, and like the Flintstones, has a gay old time until the ride ends. Then she turns 30 to 40, and the ride stops, and she goes on a different carousel, filled with beta males who are waiting for her. The ride looks broken and dilapidated. The paint is peeling off, and she's wondering how she even got there. This usually includes ugly women, fat women, and just about all the others. I've known many women that were monogamous in their 20s and 30s, but put a few drinks in them, and you see how true their nature really is. That's when they lose control, and some of them try and make out with other guys while their boyfriend is right there in front of them. I've seen guys just stand there and pretend like it was perfectly okay for their woman to behave like this, and they just smiled and watched. The average woman today, by the time she's 30, can easily have gone through 30 to 40 guys, or more by the time she reaches her mid to late 20s. Do you really think that she's going to be happy with just one man after that? A guy that's a consolation beta male prize, no doubt. Women usually stop their carousel riding for many reasons. Some get scared because their age is rising and they want to lock a man down before it's too late. Or they find a man that's the wealthiest they've ever been with and monkey branch back to him after riding all the others. Many women also get off the lesbian carousel in their early 30s because they realize it's not a carousel at all, but it's more like lesbian bumper cars. They want a man to support them into their old age, and a woman usually won't do that, so they find that guy instead. First, the fear of missing out on the ride pushes them into it, and then the fear of missing out on the family and kids scares them off. Then the fear of being in a relationship with a beta male for the rest of their lives also scares them into filing for a divorce. Then the fear of being alone gets them to purchase cats. But they have no fear of taking a stranger they barely know home with them while they're young. A man that could be a serial killer as well as a great actor. A charming and good-looking male that tricks them just like that woman in New York. A woman has no problem acting reckless and dressing slutty so long as she gets the attention from the man that she wants. It's when she doesn't get the attention from the guys that she wants, which is when she settles down with a beta male, becomes a lesbian, or becomes a feminist. But let's get real, most women, even if they're very unattractive, can get a beta male provider. But they don't want that. They want a prize sea bass that they can parade around to their friends and family and say, look, this is the type of guy that I can attract and that I'm worthy of. This proves to you as well as to myself that I have high sexual marketplace value because I'm able to score a catch. Women want to ride catch guys in their carousel days, and then they want to catch a guy that they can have children with and eventually screw over. If you're not in the top 10% of guys, then as a man you have the internet as well as Cheetos, the modern day equivalent of bread and circuses. Being in the top 10% of men first appears to be like winning the lottery. It means that you'll never be alone. You will always be able to up and score with women, and you'll never face a drought. And the rest of the men not only get sloppy seconds, they get sloppy 20 seconds, 49s, and even 77s. I think most blue pill men kind of accept this fate. Most of them just want to be the guy that she stays with once the ride comes to an end. They want to be the stallion. And I know wealthy guys that are on their second or third wife. If money alone was enough to keep a woman's attention, then guys like that should have in theory stayed married for a lifetime. The majority of guys I've noticed that are married for 40 or 50 years are usually tall, good-looking, rich, and assholes. There seems to be something about that combination that keeps their wives attached to them. If they're rich assholes but not tall and good-looking, then it won't work. And if they're tall and good-looking assholes but poor, then hypergamy really works magic right away. Most guys can't fit all these criteria, so that's why they end up getting divorced and taken to the cleaners, and the woman goes for a ride someplace else. That's something that's been extremely eye-opening for me in the last couple of years. And even then, I've known a tall, good-looking guy that's extremely wealthy that ended up getting divorced. Hi everyone, Sandman here. Today's video is brought to you by a donation from Mr. Anonymous, and here's what he has to say. Sandman, do you genuinely believe that women cannot be sincere and caring? Another question is with an argument that I had with the YouTuber known as the Mr. Anonymous in the comments section under your desirable traits video, as well as the users eManiac69 and Gabrielle Lewicki, because they were asking me, and I quote, have I gotten anyone else to give up MGTOW yet? And they were using the shaming tactics that you mentioned previously when I said that the majority of MGTOW are in fact TFL who refuse to throw in the towel. I sense a lack of fearlessness on the part of men in transition from blue pill to red pill values in the manosphere. Why is MGTOW abbreviated as men going their own way instead of men gone their own way? Are MGTOW's weaklings perpetually running away instead of solving their dilemmas? Well, Mr. Anonymous, let me stop you right there before I continue reading your statement. The video I made for you before called Desirable Traits, which I'm also linking to in the description below, is there for everyone to see. I want to give you some constructive criticism so you don't actually have to use these types of arguments anymore, and also get to the core of why you think that men going their own way are TFL, or true forced loneliness types of guys, that are in denial or don't want to throw in the towel when it comes to women. So instead I assume that you think that they cling to the title of MGTOW instead of just giving it up. When I first read your comments and questions, I thought that you were a female in disguise because it's usually women that post statements this long on my channel. And many guys listening to that video immediately assume that you were a female because of that as well. My second point is that it seems that you were using really complex words and sentence structures that most people couldn't understand. So I had to take your words down a few notches. Another thing that you were doing before was dictating how long your video would be, 20 minutes instead of the usual 10. A few guys mentioned to me that they thought that this was very similar to the female attention-seeking behavior that we always see. Also, not to mention the fact that you just shame MGTOW by saying that many of us are TFL in denial. I hope you can see why guys are attacking you and thinking that you weren't being genuine. You must know that you're going to get very negative comments and attention by saying that. And if you listen to my most recent roast videos of Anastasia, then you will surely see that she uses shaming language as well. Men going their own way are tired of the shaming language, and what do? You request a video where you're saying there were weaklings running away from the problem. That's shaming language, and what do you think is going to happen? When you said that we were TFL that refused to throw in the towel, you're like Bill Greathouse because he also says the same thing. I'm also including a link in the video to his description called Most MGTOW are TFLers. Notice how the thumbs up and thumbs down features on that video have been disabled, something a feminist would do. And by the same logic, we can conclude that Bill Greathouse is a feminist because they do it as well. And by the way, Bill isn't even a TFL guy anymore because a while back he had a woman on his YouTube channel which he was basically parading around. She was most certainly there for the attention, probably trying to use Bill for his so-called YouTube fame. The reason I bring this up is because shame is the last argument a person can use to prove their point if their logic fails them. Bill Greathouse had or has a girlfriend, and that's sort of the same type of hypocrisy we see when Paul Elam claimed to be MGTOW while cohabitating in a common law arrangement with a woman. This just proves to me that Bill's not even a true forced loneliness type of guy, even though he's the supposed founder of the entire movement. That would be like myself getting married tomorrow and still calling myself a MGTOW. It's not going to work. While I agree that some guys are forced into loneliness, I knew guys at the retirement residence that were there because they were disabled. They were basically guys that had no choice and could never be with women. They were there in their 40s and 50s in wheelchairs or missing multiple limbs, and there was no one there to see them. Most average men don't actually have to be alone if they have the money. They can pay for the services of a cuddle cafe for $60 to $100 to hug a woman and basically talk to her for an hour. In most cities, that's what a date costs. Or he can purchase some time from a woman in Backpage.com and just have a casual conversation if he wants. Guys that are disabled, poor, and unattractive most certainly can fall into the TFL situation. Mr. Anonymous, I hope you don't mind me taking your complex use of English down to its bare bones. Remember, it's not everyone that can communicate on the level of a university professor. And it's important to include everyone because sometimes the best opinions and thoughts are expressed in the simplest form instead of dressed up with complex language. I think a lot of guys out there weren't impressed by your complex use of language. Land new tricks without stopping for ads. Start a free trial of YouTube Premium and skate uninterrupted.
You work hard, but your money's working hard for someone else. Get more from your money at a credit union where our profit.
Hi, welcome to Left Foot Media. My name is Brendan Malone. Now, before I go any further with today's video, if you are a fluent speaker of German, and I know that there are some of you out there who watch my channel, then please, you're going to have to forgive me because today it is almost certain in this video that I am going to end up butchering the pronunciation of certain German words. Obviously because I don't speak fluent German and because I'm going to be speaking about the 2004 Oliver Hirschspiegel film, Downfall. The greatest German movie that's ever been made, one of the best war films that has ever been made. In fact, I think it is one of the best movies that has ever been made. There are lots of reasons why I think this about Downfall. If you don't own a copy of Downfall and you collect movies, you really should have this movie in your collection. It should be in your top 10. If you haven't seen Downfall, you need to watch Downfall ASAP. It still holds up to the test of time 14 years later. This is still a great film. It is a near perfect cinematic experience, and there are several reasons for this. First of all, it covers the final 10 days of the Nazi regime, the downfall of Nazi Germany, those final 10 days when it is all collapsing in on itself. Despite that fact, though, it doesn't treat the Nazis as simplistic, one-dimensional sort of mustachio-twirling villains, and often that is what a lot of other war films have tended to do. Instead, what this tries to do is it tries to give you the nuance and show you more about these characters. And in many ways, the fact that they make them real people and the fact that they make them more than just one-dimensional evil monsters, you sort of realize how horrific and I guess it becomes even more frightening how evil the Nazi ideology was. Because what it shows you is that even seemingly good people, even seemingly upright, intelligent, and responsible people, and the German society was the most intelligent society of its time, can very easily be swayed into doing monstrous things if they become captured by evil ideologies. And that's what this film does so well, and I think that's what adds to the horror, the tragedy, the frightening nature of what Nazism was and these events that are portrayed on screen. Secondly, this is probably some of the best acting that you will see in any film. It's not just one performance either. Every acting performance throughout this entire film, which is pretty amazing considering that this film is almost 3 hours in length. there is an acting performance in this movie, I think, to end all acting performances. One of the greatest acting performances in cinematic history, and also, I would say, probably one of the most difficult acting performances to pull off, and that was Bruno Ganz, who plays Adolf Hitler. Now, here's the interesting thing. Bruno Ganz is not a German actor. He is a Swiss actor, and yet you believe that this guy is Adolf Hitler. His performance and portrayal of Hitler really sets the bar. He sets the standard. I don't know if anyone else is ever going to beat Bruno Ganz's portrayal of Hitler in Downfall. It is just an experience that leaves you, I guess, in many ways, you're so immersed into who Hitler is. You really feel like you're watching Hitler. It's clear that Bruno Ganz has actually studied the character of Hitler and tried to understand him, and he has adopted so many of the essential mannerisms about who Hitler actually was that it's pretty frightening. It's like watching the real Adolf Hitler. It's almost like watching him in a documentary, as if someone had actually filmed this stuff. And that's what I think makes it so frightening. And it is a phenomenal performance. And as I said, I don't think it'll ever be topped. And I think what makes other performances of Hitler nowhere near this one is because basically I think they're sort of more caricatures of evil. They're more caricatures of what Hitler is portrayed to be rather than who Hitler actually was. And I think there's reasons for this. Number one, because Hitler was the guy who oversaw some of the most monstrous genocide that we've seen in the last 100 years or so of human history. And so it's very easy to focus in on the grave and very serious and monstrous evil and forget about all of the other things that actually make up who Hitler was. Secondly, I think a lot of actors, as a result of the fact that Hitler was one of the most evil and brutal dictators that we've known in the last 100 years, a lot of actors probably don't really want to try and understand or give themselves to this character. I mean, I get that. It's pretty daunting to even be playing Hitler, let alone be committing yourself so totally to understanding this character and taking on that character. And so I think those two things combined have resulted in most performances of Hitler just not really being particularly immersive, not being as authentic as they could be. And this one, the portrayal of Hitler is just so authentic that, again, it adds to the monstrous nature of what this actually was, what Nazism was. Because you realize here is a man who could have chosen very, very differently. Here is a man who definitely did not and was not predestined to espouse these evil ideologies and perpetrate and oversee these evil acts. He was a man who had choices, and he was a man who could have done other things.
Watch Minecraft tutorials without Wi-Fi. Start a free trial of YouTube Premium and game uninterrupted.
Your money, where you want it, when you want it. We have 30,000 free ATMs across America, online and mobile banking. Open your eyes to a credit union. Start today at yourmoneyfurther.com.
Welcome back to 104.1 NFM. All right, everybody, welcome back from the break. I just want to give a special shout out to all of our listeners at home, especially Robbie, Sandra, and Lewis. Those are our only 3 listeners. All right, everybody, I know that times are tough and the budget is a little bit tight, but don't you worry, because we've got plenty of royalty-free rock music volume 27 coming your way over the airwaves. We just want to remind our listeners that the phone lines are open, so call into the studio and tell us your craziest Friday night party story, or even just like a regular story, or really anything. We have not had many phone calls this decade, so. All right, that was Elevator by Kevin MacLeod. Up next, we've got hold on 1 second, sorry. Kids, hey, get out of Dad's studio. What did I say about coming in Dad's studio when he's recording? Richard, don't say that. No, this is not stupid. People need music to listen to. FM radio is not dead. Hey, what are you listening to? Is that Spotify? I'm gonna kill you. Sorry, folks, a little trouble on the home front. Again, the phone lines are open. A reminder to our listeners, please send in those donations. We are saving up to purchase the broadcast rights to play one actual song one time. This month, it is Sandra's turn to choose the song, and she has chosen Every Rose Has Its Thorn by Poison. So be sure to tune in for that song next Tuesday at 4 p.m. Central. Don't miss it, because it'll be another month before we can afford another song. Just checking if the phone is not on silent. Full volume? Okay. Remember to call in for your chance to win some Def Leppard concert tickets. I know that all of the band members are dead, but I found some old tickets in my office desk, and I mean, what am I going to do, keep them? So, guys, don't forget to call in to win your very own 104.1 Dead FM t-shirt. Again, if you are chosen as the winner, please be sure to wash, fold, and bring back the shirt by Friday so we can give it to next week's winner. Final note about the shirt. There is a rumor going around that somebody has not been using deodorant while using the shirt. So, guys, come on, shouldn't have to say this. Looking at you, Robbie. Well, it's summertime in the States, so be sure to stop by the 104.1 Dead FM booth at the county fair this weekend. Stop over and say hi and pick up your own official 104.1 Dead FM toothpick. We're going to spend all afternoon jamming out to all of the best default ringtones on my phone, and one lucky listener is going to win the chance to give me a ride home from the fair so I don't have to walk home again. Guys, not getting any calls, so 0 missed calls. Okay. Phone lines are open, guys. Hey, somebody's call. We're getting a phone call. Okay, I gotta get it. Caller, you're on the air. What's shaking? What's that now? Yeah, no, I filled in the census.
You binge watched the entire season in 2 days. Okay? Now what?
Hey, Eddie.
Yeah.
We need to bring the C100 downtown because we're shooting with Dom at 2, okay?
Okay.
Oh, hey, real quick, do you want to grab the little binder clips?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, sounds good. Hey, one more thing. I need you to...
What?
There's a bunch of cranes in here.
What?
Yeah, I was drinking water, I thought, and there's just a bunch of crayons.
There's crayons in your cup.
That's weird. Well, let's grab another one. Yeah, and we need to finish those scripts by next Tuesday, too. Otherwise, Bill said he's not going to help us with the lighting.
Oh my god!
Well, there's crayons in this cup, too.
More crayons?
Do you think there's crayons in the other cups?
Yeah, you gotta check if we have crayons in our house.
Yeah? What? I don't know. Oh my goodness, there's bowls, too.
There's crayons in the bowls?
There's crayons in the bowls.
Why?
I just don't know the source of all these crayons.
Do you think there's crayons in the cabinets, or?
Well, frankly, I'm almost afraid to check.
Well, you have to.
Here we go. What? There are crayons in the cupboards.
Why are there crayons in the cupboard, dude? There's more. Check the other cupboard, then. I'll do it. I did it. Check this cupboard, too. Check the cupboard. I'll do it. There's no crayons in the cupboard. There's more. I don't know if you saw them. There's some crayon bags. Oh, my God. There's so many crayons in here. Why are there so many? It's crayons. I need a tissue. Clearly it's crayons. I don't know what we expected at this point, but it's still crayons. It's all crayons. Dude, I can't sweep fast enough. There's too many crayons. I know there's too many. What? Oh my god. It's in the fabric. I can't in the fabric. Oh, yes, it's in the fabric. Well, that was gross. Check your room, dude. I will check your room. I'm afraid to look almost. Oh, man.
Ow, this hurts.
All nations seek identity.
culture and stories that bind us together, protagonists that challenge us to strive for more. Settings with historical context add realism and contribute to a nation's mythos. In the United States of America, the Wild West is more than a memory. It's a culmination of the ideals of self-sufficiency, the strive for a better life. But it didn't come from nothing, and the portrayal of it in many classic stories take great liberty with the source material. I am not here to dispel all of the myths, but I'd rather look at some of the things that led to its creation, and more so, its legacy. Now, we can't have the Wild West and the myths that come with it without having the American frontier to bring about the fledgling settlements that fueled this. To the European settlers of the New World, anything and everything was prime for the taking, disregarding the sentiments of those who already resided there. The European settlers coming across the Atlantic sought to find a new life, and with it, an equal playing field. It just so happened that, as the 13 colonies developed, class structure and systems began to form yet again. With this, the disenfranchised sought to venture forth to new places. However, the land to the west was dangerous, yet it remained alluring. It would allow anybody to live out their own life without the pre-existing conditions of living in the established colonies. Yet the danger wasn't just in fending for oneself against the power of nature. Civilizations had formed in the Americas well before the Europeans arrived, and the influx of settlers was easily perceived as a hostile move to the native residents. To wander off and make claim in Native American territory could be bad for one's health, yet some found the new frontier as too good of an opportunity to pass up. But prior to the American Revolution, these outstanding European settlers didn't venture too far away from British rule. The eastern seaboard was in itself land with potential. Moving too far past the borders of the colonies would be both dangerous and without legal precedent in the eyes of the crown. This would change as America declared its independence. Britain ceded land to the newly formed American government in an act of goodwill, eager to push the new nation towards a more positive attitude regarding its former governing body. While the new land was saw by the American government and public as newly acquired assets, free for the taking, ownership was
Doesn't seem too scary. I mean, it's just magical bets. That's surrounding. Yeah, but it's as cold as a.
But it's as cool as a cucumber up there. Like, yeah, but I died from the cold, not from the freaking hypothermia. Oh. I'm currently watching Silence. They say it's a scary movie, and my friend said like it had something to do with like some bad stuff, but supposedly I've already seen this. It's like where they're going through a town in a cult. They try to kidnap her daughter because like I don't know. I ain't gonna spoil it for you. It's not like one of those horror movies where like you're watching it and then all of a sudden you're crapping your pants because it's that scary. It's just like a thriller, but I kind of enjoy movies like that. Not the whole